But we begin tonight on Donald Trump's birthday. He turned 77 years old today. Happy birthday, you twice indicted, twice impeached, found liable for sexual abuse former president. I'm sure it's been an interesting one. A day of reflection, perhaps, on what matters in life, like family, good health, community. Or not. I mean, this is Donald Trump we're talking about. So what matters in life are things. Gold toilets, celebrity tchotchke collections, gold bathroom chandeliers, gold stuff on the walls in the gold ballroom, or the Shaquille O'Neal sneaker he bragged about to a Wall Street Journal reporter back in 2015.
This is Shaquille O'Neal's shoe.
Oh, my God.
Right here, which is a serious shoe.
Is that a real shoe?
That's a real shoe. He took it off after a game and handed it to me.
Oh, my God.
I carried it like this.
Yeah, I guess. Because you don't really like germs anyway, do you?
No, from Shaq.
Yeah, but it's a serious shoe. I mean, we've always known this about Trump, right? That he's kind of a weird old hoarder guy with the taste level of a Mega Millions lotto winner from the 1980s, mashed up with that guy you went to high school with who still wears the letter jersey from his 11th grade football championship. It explains why he would leave office with a mania to cling to physical icons of power. Trump sees classified documents the same way he sees Shaq's shoes, the ultimate trappings of presidential fiat. Evidence that he held that powerful office and no one can forget it. So when it came to these boxes, he couldn't believe his luck. Talk about shiny new objects, brighter than a Saudi orb. Military papers and intelligence briefings he got to show off, the way that the youngins need to document everything for the gram. He literally, clearly wanted to hang on to them, kind of like Gollum and his precious, only it's my boxes. Ornamental nuclear secrets. Chris Christie, who's running against Trump for president, has something to say about that.
He cannot live with the fact that he lost to Joe Biden. He can't live with it. He wants to continue to pretend he's president. He wants the trappings of the presidency around him. And I think one of those trappings is these documents that he can wave around to people as they detail in the indictment.
In addition to being weird about stuff, Trump is also a really bad legal client. In March, Sean Hannity offered Trump a lifeline that went awry.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I know you. I don't think you would do it.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would have the right to do that. I would do that. There'd be
All right, let me move on.
No, Sean, I totally did it. I'm totally guilty. I did it. About a month later, his legal team tried to get him out of trouble again, sending this letter to Congress saying they'd seen absolutely no indication that Trump knowingly possessed any of the marked documents or willfully broke any laws, blaming the mishap on haphazard records keeping and packing by White House staff. Trump then managed to screw those attorneys over with these remarks at his disastrous CNN town hall.
Just so you understand, I had every right to do it. I didn't make a secret of it. I took the documents I'm allowed to.
The agony of being a Trump attorney. He's allowed to do it, he thinks. It's his basic defense. Everybody does it, and I can do it because I'm still kind of the president. Like when you're a star, they let you do it. But it wouldn't be Donald Trump without undercutting his defense again. The exact same day he pleaded not guilty, he used his post-arraignment speech at his golf club, tricked out like a fake White House, to again admit he did it.
Many people have asked me why I had these boxes. Why did you want them? The answer, in addition to having every right under the Presidential Records Act, is that these boxes were containing all types of personal belongings, many things, shirts and shoes and everything. I hadn't had a chance to go through all the boxes. It's a long, tedious job. It takes a long time, which I was prepared to do, but I have a very busy life. I've had a very busy life.
You know what former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman calls that thing that Trump just said and all his other pretend defenses? A confession.
One thing that's important for everyone to know is those statements that you just played are admissible as admissions, regardless of whether Donald Trump takes a stand or not. Those are admissions. So that is part of what he said is just a straight out confession. It's not a defense, it's a confession. When you are charged with the illegal retention, the illegal possession of documents, it is not a good idea to say, hey, you want to know why I took these? Because I could. That is not a defense to that charge. That is an admission to that charge.
Joining me now are former Missouri Senator and MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill, former acting assistant U.S. Attorney General for National Security Mary McCord, and former assistant district attorney for Manhattan Catherine Christian. I'm going to start here at the table and just go through what you just heard, those 3 bites of Trump, because it sounds to me like his defense is I did it.
Yes, as Andrew said, he's had multiple confessions he's made. His public statements are the gift that keeps giving for prosecutors or plaintiffs' attorneys. Every time he speaks, I'm sure his attorneys say, please don't speak, please don't, and he just keeps doing it. So he's admitted that he had the documents. And he contradicts himself also because he said that he didn't look through the boxes.
Right.
So, well, clearly he did because there's an audio tape of him at the same golf club, apparently waving around a document and then saying on it, well, it's confidential and I could have declassified it when I was president, but I didn't. So he is just completely inconsistent, but he's given multiple confessions in this case.
If you had someone on the stand in front of you as a prosecutor and there were previous statements recorded that they'd recorded all over the place saying, I totally did this, would you even have to put them on the stand? Could you just use their prior statements as the equivalent of putting them on the stand?
Well, you mean cross-examination?
Yeah.
Well, and I can't imagine he would, but if he ever took the stand, it would be a dream for anyone who's cross-examining him because he would have his direct examination and then you would just say, isn't it true on this date you said this? And you would just pull up the videos of him, one after another, and it speaks for itself.
It's okay, Mary McCord, let me go to you on this because this is Trump's other defense. And he has been using this a lot. And I think for people who don't know the law and aren't familiar with it, to them it probably sounds credible. Here's Donald Trump giving the Presidential Records Act defense.
I had every right to have these documents. The crucial legal precedent is laid out in the most important case ever on this subject, known as the Clinton-Socks case. In other words, whatever documents a president decides to take with him, he has the right to do so. It's an absolute right. This is the law.
Mary, please fact check that.
Well, it's not the law. It's not whatever documents the president decides to take with him when he leaves the Oval Office are his documents. The Presidential Records Act explicitly made clear in law that presidential records of official business that are not just purely personal records are not the president's property. They're not the former president's property. They are the public's property. They are the government's property. And so that's why the National Archives reached out to Donald Trump after he left the White House from Mar-a-Lago and said, we need all of these records back. When they first reached out, they weren't necessarily suspecting that there were classified information in those boxes. They just knew they were presidential records and that it was their duty as the archivists to go through the boxes. And if there was anything in there that was not an official record, that did not meet the definition of presidential records, well, then they would send it back to Mr. Trump as personal information. But he does not get to just call his own anything that he wishes. That's not in the law at all. And I do think sometimes the reason he keeps making these admissions, besides the fact that he can't control himself and he can't ever admit he did anything wrong, is I think he's trying to sort of convince the population that he had no intent to break the law. He was just he was just complying with the law. The problem is that's based on a legal fiction.
Claire, first of all, saying it was in with my socks and my clothes is not the own Donald Trump thinks it is, because, Republicans are trying to argue that our top secret and nuclear information was safer in his gold bathroom than it was in Joe Biden's garage. But if you're saying that your care for national security is limited to you throwing national security information in a box with your socks and clothes, doesn't sound like you care too much about national security. And yet Republicans are trying to make this make sense.
The biggest problem the Republicans have is they are actually trying to pretend that Donald Trump is getting indicted because he took documents. That's not why he's getting indicted. Then the archives, they wanted him to return the documents. This took so long because they were giving him every opportunity to do what Joe Biden and Mike Pence did immediately. Hey, they're here, take them, come look all you want. I don't want any of them. And we don't even know if any of those documents were serious in terms of national security implications. That's not what happened here. Donald Trump, they said, please give them to us. He said, eh. Then they said, well, we really mean it. Please give them to us. And he said, nah, they're mine. Then they subpoenaed him. And he said, yeah, I'll give you some. And then meanwhile, he's telling his lawyers, can't we just make them disappear? He's telling his staff, go hide them. He is lying because he wanted to keep them for two reasons. One, he's an insecure braggart. And two, I think he thought he could monetize them in some way. Because at the end of the day, with Trump, it's either about one thing, money or lying.